In the dark silence of deep space, the salvage ship Dauntless 1 moved slowly toward a weak signal. Captain Jace Monroe stood on the bridge, looking at the screen with sharp eyes. He was not young, not old, but the kind of man who had seen too much and trusted too little. "Unmarked ship," said his crew officer. "Darnell, no ID, no beacon, barely holding together." Jace crossed his arms, thinking, "How far out are we?" He asked. "5 light days from the nearest patrol," Darnell answered. "Perfect for secrets." Jace muttered. They moved closer, engines low, lights dim. Jace didn't like surprises in space, but something about the broken ship felt different. Like it wasn't just another dead wreck floating in the cold. When they docked, the airlock hissed open with a soft sigh. The crew entered slowly, weapons ready, helmets on inside. The alien ship was silent, full of shadows and ruined walls. Panels were torn, wires sparked, and the air smelled like burnt plastic and old metal. "No life signs," said the medic, scanning the hallway. But Jace kept walking. Something was pulling him deeper into the ship. Then they found it. A small room near the rear of the ship. Inside was a cryopod, glowing a faint blue light in the dark. The pod was scratched and dented, but still working. Inside was a female alien, floating gently in cryosleep. She had silver blue skin and long white hair that moved like mist inside the pod. Her face was calm, almost peaceful, but there was something strange. A frozen tear ran down her cheek. "Still alive," said the medic, surprised. "Yeah," Darnell added. "Reading the pod, but look at this, she's tagged as property. Cargo item 88 Bravo." Jace frowned, leaning closer. "Who tags a living person as cargo?" He asked quietly. "Some slavers do," said Darnell. "Or corporations, if it's not a citizen species." Jace felt a wave of anger in his chest. To him, she didn't look like cargo. She looked like someone who had lost everything. "Bring the pod back." "To the ship," he ordered. "Captain," said Darnell, nervous. "We should report this first. Make sure it's legal." "She's alive," Jace replied. "That's all I care about right now." Back on Dauntless 1, they placed the pod in the cargo hold. The ship's AI scanned the alien and confirmed what the tag had said. "Subject marked as unclaimed salvage," it announced. "Legal ownership defaulted to finder." "That's messed up," whispered the medic. "Welcome to the law," Darnell said, shaking his head. The rest of the crew walked away, done with their job, but Jace stayed. He stood alone in front of the pod for a long time. The woman inside didn't move. Didn't breathe, but she was not dead. She was frozen in time. Her body was marked with old scars and burns. Signs of a battle before the pod was closed. On the corner of the pod was a name, partly burned away. It read, Vayari. Jace spoke the name softly. He didn't know why, but it felt important. He could feel something in his chest, a kind of pull, like he had found something that wasn't meant to be found. Later that night, Jace sat alone in the cargo bay. Everyone else was asleep. He stood by the pod, staring at the alien woman inside. He thought about all the things he had seen in his life: pirates, wars, greed, and the way people treated others like tools or trash. He thought about what the law said. If he woke her up, he could get in trouble. She was property now, that's what the system said. But in her face, he saw pain and memory and something deeply human. He reached toward the console, his finger hovering over the activation switch. She might be dangerous, he whispered to himself, but she might also need help. His hand shook slightly. One push, and everything could change. Jace closed his eyes, took a breath, and pressed the button. The pod lights shifted from blue to green. A quiet hum began to rise. The cryosystems unlocked with a soft hiss. Her fingers twitched. Her chest began to rise and fall. She gasped sharply, her eyes opening wide, glowing like stars in a storm. She looked around in panic, hands pushing against the glass. Jace quickly unlocked the lid, and it slid open. The alien woman fell forward, coughing, weak and shaking. She looked up at Jace with fear and confusion. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Only a soft sound, like a cry lost in the stars. Jace knelt beside her and spoke gently. "You're safe now," but in his heart. He knew nothing about this was going to be safe. Asterisk. She didn't know where she was. Only cold air, bright lights, and strange voices surrounded her. Her skin hurt, her chest burned. Her memories felt like shattered glass floating in water. Her name, she searched her mind. Her name was Veari. That much she knew, but everything else was broken. She opened her eyes and saw a human face above her. Soft eyes, sharp jaw, tired expression. He said something, but she didn't understand the words still. Something in his voice felt calm. Her body trembled as she tried to sit up. "Easy," the human said again. Raising his hand slowly. His voice was low, careful, like someone speaking to a wounded animal. Veari didn't trust him, but she didn't fear him either, not like the others from before. She remembered loud voices, heavy boots, pain. And then the cold pod closing around her. A tear escaped her eye again, but this time it was real. Warm and alive, Captain Jace Monroe gently offered a water pack. She sniffed it first, then drank. Her throat burned as if it had been dry for 1,000 years. Other humans entered the room. 3 of them. One spoke loudly, pointing at her. "She's not a guest, Captain. She's cargo. We shouldn't have opened the pod." Jace didn't even turn to him. "She's a person, Darnell," he replied firmly. "She can't even talk." Darnell argued, "She's not like us." But Veari was listening. She couldn't speak their language, but she heard the weight in their voices. One sounded cold, one sounded angry, but only one sounded kind. The kind one stayed by her side, offering her a blanket. "You're safe," he said again. The words meant little, but the meaning reached her heart. She closed her eyes, holding the cloth to her chest. Later, the medic scanned her body. "Vital signs are steady," she said. "But her nervous system shows trauma, memory gaps, high stress." Jace nodded, watching Veari as she stared at the lights in the ceiling like they were stars. She didn't speak, but she began to draw. On the metal floor with a broken wire, she traced strange symbols, curves, loops, a kind of language no one recognized. "Is that writing?" asked the medic. "Maybe," Jace said quietly. "Or maybe it's something more." When they brought food, she hesitated. She sniffed it, touched it, but wouldn't eat. Until Jace took a small bite himself and nodded. Only then did she try a little. Chewing slowly, eyes always on him. That night, Jace watched old files from the ship's black box. The alien vessel had been attacked by pirates. No signal had been sent. No help had come. One short, corrupted video clip remained. In it, Veari was screaming, clutching a fallen alien, taller, older male. He was bleeding badly. He handed her something, then pushed her into the pod. As the pirates entered, he turned to face them with a blade. The screen turned to static. Jace paused the clip on her face. Just before the pod closed, her eyes were wide, filled with horror and love and loss. Not a slave, not cargo, someone who had lost everything. "Captain," said the ship's AI. "Incoming message from the border salvage office." "Put it through," Jace said, still staring at the frozen screen. "This is Officer Grint, classification team." "Delta 7, the voice said coldly. "Your ship has retrieved illegal biocargo from a Class F alien wreck. Prepare to transfer the item to nearest authority vessel within 72 hours. Jace leaned back in his chair, anger rising in his chest. "She's not an item," he muttered. "Captain?" The eye asked. "Nothing," Jace said, cutting the cum line in the dark cargo room. Veari stared out the window into space. She didn't know this ship, didn't know these people, but she felt something small grow in her chest, hope weak and flickering. But alive. Jace entered quietly, holding a small data pad. On it were images of basic words, objects and symbols. He pointed to his chest. "Jace," he said, then pointed to her. She hesitated. Then, softly, barely more than a whisper, "Veari." He smiled for the first time in days. She tried to smile back. Outside, The stars kept moving, but inside that room, 2 lives had changed. 1 human had broken the rules, and 1 alien widow had started to remember who she was. The message came at 03:00 ship time, not with a warning, not with a greeting. Just a single line blinking on Jace's screen. Prepare for transfer. Property review scheduled. Captain Jace Monroe sat alone in his quarters. Reading the words over and over, he felt like the ship was colder than usual. Not the metal, but the system itself, cold, unfeeling, legal. Vayari was sleeping in the medbay. They had given her a real bed now, not a cargo crate. She still didn't speak much, but she watched everything, listened, learned. Sometimes she copied Jace's words with quiet effort, mouthing them without sound. She even smiled once when he showed her how to use a spoon. Jace didn't know why that moment hit him so hard. Maybe because she reminded him that being human wasn't about species. It was about something else. But the law didn't care about spoons or smiles. The law said she was an object, just another item recovered from deep space. A salvage claim. Jace knew he couldn't fight that head on. But he could dig, and he did, all night. He searched through old archives, locked records, forgotten treaty logs buried in the system's memory banks. He found something strange. A treaty file dated 117 years ago. A formal agreement between the Earth Alliance and the species called the Varelian Kindred. The file was corrupted, but one page was still readable. It spoke of shared technology, defense pacts, and a recognition of sentient equality. Jace's eyes widened. Varelian Kindred, he whispered. He pulled up Vayari's DNA scan from the medbay files. A 96% match to the Varelian genome. She wasn't a new species, she was an old ally. Then why isn't this in any modern database? He asked aloud. The AI responded coldly. Treaty was nullified during the corporate war of 2189 due to loss of mutual contact and presumed extinction. Presumed extinction? Jace repeated. He leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. They wiped them off the records. Suddenly, the law made more sense. Not justice, just convenience. It was easier to erase a species than to explain what happened to them. He stood up fast and marched to the medbay. Vayari was awake. She had been drawing again. This time, she wasn't tracing the stars. She was drawing a shape, a mountain, split down the center, with a strange symbol at the top. Jace stared at it. Do you know what this is? He asked. Vayari nodded slowly. She pointed to herself, then to the symbol, then to the stars outside the window. Home? He asked. She nodded again. Jace took a deep breath. Vayari, can you take me there? She stared into his eyes for a long moment. Then she closed her hand into a fist and placed it on her chest. It felt like a promise. Jace turned back to his console. He had a choice to make in 2 days. A patrol ship would arrive to take her. He could hand her over, keep his record clean, and forget everything. Or he could go dark, take the Dauntless One off the grid, and follow her memory into deep space. Captain, the AI said suddenly. Encrypted message received from an unknown source. Show me, Jace ordered. The screen flickered, then displayed a single sentence. Not everything lost is forgotten. She is not the last. Jace froze. Someone out there knew what she was, and they were watching. He tapped the message, trying to trace it. No luck. Whoever sent it had covered their tracks well. Jace looked up at the ceiling, thinking fast. This wasn't just about Vayari anymore. This was bigger. If she wasn't the last, then others were still out there. Hidden, lost or hunted. He looked back at Vayari, who was now looking straight at him. For the first time, she spoke a word in English, one word. Fight. Jace nodded slowly. Yeah, he said quietly. Let's fight. He walked to the ship's core panel and entered a command code. Navigation lock, overridden, destination, unknown sector, star system 44X. The screen asked one last question. Confirm illegal jump outside monitored space? Jace didn't hesitate. He pressed the button. The engines roared to life, lights dimmed, and the ship vanished into the stars. Behind them, the law would come searching. But ahead of them, the truth waited. And maybe, just maybe, freedom too. The stars were wrong. That was the first thing Vayari noticed when she looked out the viewport. These stars were colder, older. She had never seen this part of the galaxy before, and yet her heart knew it. Something deep inside whispered, "You've been here before, but not alone." Captain Jace stood at the helm, eyes locked on the navigation display. They had jumped far outside monitored space. No laws here, no patrols, no rescue, and no mercy if someone found them. Behind them, the galaxy still turned, full of rules and borders. Ahead of them was only silence, and whatever the Varelian memory could still unlock. Suddenly, the ship's eye broke the quiet. "Captain, incoming ship detected. Distance 67,000 kilometers. Closing fast, no broadcast ID. Stealth drive detected." Jace's heart dropped. "Bounty hunter?" He guessed. "Highly probable," the AI replied. Jace swore under his breath and hit the ship-wide alarm. Red lights flickered across the hallways. Vayari stood without fear. She looked at Jace, and then at the ceiling, as if she could hear the engines. "Breathe. You knew they'd come," she said quietly. He nodded. "They're not here for me," he replied. "They're here for you." The bounty ship moved fast, too fast for a freighter like Dauntless One to outrun in open space. So Jace did the only thing he could think of. He flew into the storm. The nearest planet was covered in violent electromagnetic storms, a gas giant with a deadly sky. "Are you crazy?" yelled Darnell over comms. "That thing will tear us apart. That thing might hide us." Jace shouted back. The Dauntless One dove into the swirling clouds, lightning crackling across its hull. The enemy ship followed, weapons hot, tracking them. Through ion bursts and plasma fields, Vayari closed her eyes. She placed both hands on the floor of the ship, like listening through her skin. Suddenly, she whispered something in her native tongue. The lights around her dimmed, then shifted. A glowing pattern spread under her palm symbols no one had seen before. Jace stared in disbelief. "What are you doing?" he asked. She looked up, her eyes glowing faintly. "This ship listens to me now," she said. Before Jace could respond, the ship's navigation panel lit up on its own. New paths appeared through the storm, paths no human could have seen. Jace didn't question it. He flew into the chaos, following her invisible thread behind them. The bounty hunter lost the trail for 5 seconds. That was enough. Vayari pointed to a ridge in the storm, barely wide enough to pass through. Jace pushed the thrusters to the limit. The ship slipped through just as the bounty hunter fired. A plasma bolt exploded behind them, sending shockwaves through the storm. The Dauntless One tumbled, shaking, but held together. They escaped into a quiet pocket of sky just outside the gravity well. No signal, no enemy in sight. They had made it. For now, silence returned to the ship. Darnell sat in the corner, breathing hard, looking at Vayari like she was a ghost. "You controlled the ship," he said. "That's not possible. It's not tech." Jace said slowly, staring at her. "It's memory." Vayari looked at the floor, ashamed. "In my time, our ships were alive. They bonded with us. But we lost that gift when we lost our home." Jace knelt beside her. "You didn't lose it," he said. "You just forgot how to speak." She smiled faintly. Then her face went cold. "The one chasing us is not just a hunter," she whispered. "He works for the ones who destroyed my kind. The ones who said we were not people, but weapons." "Who?" Jace asked. Vayari touched the console and showed him a symbol, an ancient crest that flickered with deep red light. Jace recognized it. He had seen it once, burned onto the side of a slaver ship 10 years ago. A corporation long believed to be dead. Novodyne. That company was wiped out during the corporate wars, he said, confused. "They survived in the shadows," Vayari replied. "And now they want me back." "Because I remember the gate." Jace leaned forward. "What gate?" Vayari placed her hand on his chest. "The place they feared most. The place my husband died to protect, it's where the truth lives. And they will kill anything to keep it buried. Jace stood slowly, spine straight, heart heavy. They hadn't just saved an alien widow. They had woken a secret worth killing for. And now they were running out of places to hide. She was running through silver grass. Moonlight fell in ribbons between tall trees. Behind her, a deep drum echoed through the sky like thunder without clouds. Her feet were bare, but the ground felt warm and soft. And ahead he waited, tall, armored, eyes glowing like dusk. He smiled at her, lifted his hand. But before she could reach him, the sky split open and the stars turned red. Viari woke with a sharp breath, sitting up in her bunk. Her skin was damp, her hands shaking. She pressed a hand to her chest. That man, the one from her dream. He wasn't just a memory. He was her mate, her protector, the one who sealed the gate. With his life, now she had to find it again. The Dauntless One drifted slowly above a gray planet below. Its surface was cracked and lifeless. Like old stone forgotten by time, Jace stood at the window with her, silent. "This was your home?" he asked. Softly, Viari nodded. "It was called Verelian Prime long ago. Does anything still live down there?" She didn't answer. Her eyes were distant, focused on something only she could feel. An old heartbeat, buried beneath ash and silence. They descended through heavy clouds, landing on a flat plain covered in pale dust. The air was breathable, but dry. The wind sang through broken towers, hollow and mournful. They walked toward the ruins. Jace, Viari, and 2 crew members. Old bones of buildings rose from the ground, carved with symbols long forgotten. Viari touched one wall, and a soft light rippled from her fingers across the stone. The crew stepped back. "It's reacting to her," said Darnell, voice low. Jace looked at Viari, who kept her hand on the wall, eyes closed. Then she whispered, "It remembers me." They moved deeper into the ruins until they found it. A door set into the mountain itself. It was sealed with curved metal, shaped like a star caught in motion. "This is the vault," she said, "where our kind stored knowledge, names, and memory." Jace brushed dust from a small panel near the center. "Can you open it?" "I can try," she said. She placed both hands on the symbol and began to hum a low, vibrating sound that didn't seem possible from such a soft voice. The door responded. It opened slowly, groaning like an old beast waking from sleep. Inside, lights flickered on one by one, revealing a chamber filled with glass columns, each holding glowing symbols and fractured holograms. Jace stepped forward, eyes wide. "This is beautiful." Viari moved to the central console and placed her hand on a glowing orb. A projection appeared in the air above them, a map of the galaxy. Dozens of red markers blinked across it. "These," she said, "are the others who survived, hidden on old paths, refugee planets, lost stations." Jace felt something heavy shift inside him. "So you're not the last?" "No," she whispered, "but they're all in danger, as long as Novodyne lives." Suddenly, the map flickered, and a new signal appeared, one not placed by Viari's kind, a tracker signal. "It's here," said Jace, eyes narrowing. "Someone followed us." They rushed outside over the hills. A dark shape was descending, sleek, fast, silent. A ship with no markings. Darnell cursed under his breath. "They were waiting for us to open the vault." Viari turned to Jace, face pale. "This place will not survive another attack. We must leave now." Jace nodded. "Opening comes to the Dauntless One. Prep for emergency lift. We're coming back hot." As they ran, Viari paused just once. She turned back to the vault and whispered something in her native tongue. Then the ground beneath them shook, not from the enemy, but from below. "What was that?" Darnell shouted. "The vault is closing itself," Viari said, "protecting what it holds, locking it down, maybe forever." They reached the ship as the enemy's dropship touched down behind them. Laser fire lit up the sky. Jace and the crew fired back, covering Viari as she climbed aboard. The Dauntless One lifted off in a storm of dust and flame, engines howling inside. Alarms rang and systems glowed red. They had made it, but just barely, and as they escaped orbit, Jace turned to Vayari. "Someone gave them our location," he said. Slowly, "Someone on my crew." Vayari didn't look surprised. She only whispered, "I felt it. When we opened the vault, a shadow walked with us. Hidden behind your trust." It started with a voice. Not a scream, not a warning. Just a quiet voice behind. Jace's ear. "I'm sorry, Captain." Then came the shock stick. Blue light surged through his body, locking his muscles, burning his thoughts. He dropped to the floor of the Dauntless One, unable to speak, barely able to breathe. The traitor stood over him, face hidden behind a visor, a familiar voice, but cold. "Now, you should have handed her over, Jace. You really should have." Vayari felt the betrayal before she saw it. In the ship's energy, in the way the lights flickered wrong, in the silence of rooms that used to hum with soft warmth. She ran to the command deck, but it was too late. The doors sealed shut. The engine stopped mid-flight, and then external pressure, a ship docking beside them. The enemy had returned, but this time they weren't hunting. They were collecting. Darnell stood in front of the crew, gun raised, eyes full of something worse than anger, regret. "I sold our location 2 days ago," he said. "I didn't know they'd hurt him. I thought they just wanted the alien." Vayari stepped forward slowly, hands open, her face calm. "Then let them take me, not him." Darnell looked at her, confused. "You speak English now?" "I listen," she said, "even to lies." The enemy boarded with swift precision, silent soldiers in dark armor, weapons that shimmered with blue heat. They took Jace's body, unconscious, still breathing, but barely. One of them scanned Vayari. "Target acquired, transfer priority level 1, he said. They placed cuffs on her wrists, binding her with humming tech that dimmed her energy. She didn't fight, not yet, because she was waiting. Waiting for the moment when the lie would crack and the choice would come. They were taken to a station floating in the shadows of a dead moon. No light, no name. Just metal and silence and pain. Jace awoke strapped to a chair, head pounding, mouth dry. Across from him sat a figure in a dark suit, no face, only a voice like oil poured over fire. "You broke the law for her, Captain," it said. "And now, the law breaks you." "You don't know what she is," Jace whispered. "We do," the voice replied. "And that's why she must never be free." In another room, Vayari was left alone, her hands chained, her strength dimmed by the tech wrapped around her. But her mind was clear. She remembered the gate now. The place where her husband had died to protect the truth. And she remembered something else. The final words he had spoken as he sealed her pod. "You are not a weapon, Vayari, unless they make you one." She stood up slowly, closed her eyes, and began to sing, not with words, but with tones older than the stars. The bindings on her wrists sparked once, twice, then fell apart like sand. Outside the cell, alarms rang, but she was already gone, moving like wind through the station, quiet and full of purpose. She found Jace in the interrogation chamber, eyes half closed, blood on his lip. "Hey," she said softly, kneeling beside him. "Wake up, human." He opened one eye, and somehow he smiled. "You came back?" "You were the only one who called me person," she said, breaking his cuffs. "I'd do it again," he whispered. "And I'd fight for you again," she replied. Footsteps echoed outside. The door blew open, and Vayari stood between Jace and the enemy. She lifted one hand and spoke one word, an old word from the Varelian core language. The lights exploded. The guards fell to their knees, clutching their heads, screaming from inside their minds. Jace stared at her, breathless. "What was that?" "Memory," she said, helping him up. "They fear us not because we're strong, but because we remember what we were." As they ran through the station, explosions rocked the halls. Vayari had triggered the station's oldest systems, ones built by her people before they were forgotten. At the exit bay, Darnell waited, gun in hand. Jace raised his weapon, but Vayari stepped forward first. "You betrayed us," she said. I thought I was saving lives, Darnell replied, shaking. They said you were dangerous. I am, she said, voice soft. But only when you chain me. She didn't kill him, she simply walked past, and somehow that was worse. They escaped the station in a stolen shuttle. Silent as the stars, no cheers, no music. Just two broken souls flying toward a future neither could see yet. Jace sat beside her, hand wrapped in hers. You had a choice, he said. You could have left me, saved yourself. Vayari looked out at the stars, her voice quiet but clear. I choose my own path now, and you are on it. Asterisk. They called it the Hall of Truth, but to Vayari, it felt like a cage made of glass and light. The walls were tall, glowing with silent holograms. Floating judges sat in high chairs above the chamber. Machines recorded every word, and millions across the galaxy were watching. Not just soldiers or politicians, but people, farmers on outer moons, students in space colonies, old warriors in forgotten ships, all of them waiting to hear what the alien widow would say. Captain Jace Monroe stood at her side. His wounds mostly healed, but his eyes still heavy. He had fought battles with weapons before, but this one, with words and memory, felt far harder. The lead judge, a machine-human hybrid known only as Speaker 1, addressed the room. You are Vayari, last known survivor of the Varelian kindred. Yes, she said, her voice steady. You were found aboard a derelict ship, tagged as property under salvage code 88B. Is this correct? Vayari paused, then looked straight into the eyes of the speaker. I was found, yes, she said, but I was never property. A low hum passed through the room. The judge continued. The court acknowledges a recovered treaty dated over 100 years ago, recognizing the Varelian kindred as sentient allies of the Earth Alliance. However, Novaden Corporation claims that treaty was voided by extinction, and that you are no longer protected by it. Vayari stepped forward. My people were not extinct, she said. We were erased. She touched a console beside her. A map appeared in the air, bright dots blinking across forgotten sectors. These are survivors, she said, hidden, scattered, waiting for someone to remember us. Another hologram appeared, a video from the vault. It showed her husband, the final battle, the sealing of the gate. Gasps filled the room. Even the speaker paused. This footage is genuine? It asked. Yes, Jay said, stepping beside her, and there's more. He uploaded evidence from the hidden station. Recordings of Novadine's secret operations, their pursuit of Vayari, their plan to use her people's knowledge as weapons again. They didn't just hunt her, Jay said, voice full of fire. They tried to rewrite history, to silence her race forever. But they failed. Speaker 1 processed this in silence for a moment, then looked at Vayari again. You stand before this court, not as a criminal, but as a question. Are you property, as the law once claimed? Or are you person? Vayari took a breath, then stepped into the center of the chamber. She looked directly at the camera, speaking, not just to the court, but to the stars themselves. I was tagged, she said, labeled, boxed, locked away. I was frozen in a pod, not because I was dangerous, but because I dared to survive. I watched my mate die to protect a truth none of you wanted to remember. Her voice trembled, but only for a second. And yet, a human broke the rules to wake me. One human treated me not as cargo, not as code, but as a soul. She held up her hand and spoke the old Varelian word for freedom. The lights in the chamber shifted, echoing her voice across the walls. You don't need to decide if I'm property, she said, because I already decided. I am not property. I am not lost. I am Vayari of the kindred, and I am alive. Silence followed. Not a machine moved. Not a breath was taken. Then the speaker's eyes glowed blue. Verdict. Sentient, protected, free. Cheers erupted across the chamber, across the planets, across the stars. The story of Vayari spread faster than light. Not as a prisoner set free, but as a voice returned to history. Later, aboard the Dauntless One, Jace leaned back in his chair, watching the stars again. Viari sat beside him, dressed in new robes, her eyes softer now. "You didn't have to fight for me," she said. "I didn't," he replied. "I fought with you. There's a difference," she smiled, then held up a small device, a memory crystal taken from the vault. "There are more gates," she said, "more secrets, buried out there, and others like me, still waiting." Jace raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying you're not done?" She looked at him, fire in her voice once more. "I'm saying this was only the beginning, asterisk.